What was your creepy unexplained experience as a child? Part 2. 1. The house I grew up during a large portion of my childhood was built sometime in the 1930s. It was pretty big, which was great for a kid like me who loved to explore. Problem was that all throughout the house I would routinely get this creepy vibe, like as if someone were watching me, or this overwhelming feeling that I wasn't safe and needed to leave particular areas. Now, it could have had just been an overactive imagination. Kids are definitely prone to having those. Problem was I wasn't exposed to scary movies or stories as a kid. I think my parents recognized how scared I would get by my own imagination. And couldn't even fathom how bad it would be to actually see or hear something. Still, even as an adult now looking back, there are two particular events which I can't possibly explain as being irrational. Both of them involve the basement, which I'll mention was primarily unfinished. To give a quick layout of it, the basement was accessible through the kitchen or the main hallway, and was adjacent to the side door. It was unfinished, with hard concrete floors, and an area in the back that was mostly dirt. Going down the basement meant you had to take these wooden steps which had probably been there since the 30s. The first incident was on a weekend. My dad and I were sitting in the living room watching NASCAR, and during a commercial break he asked me to get him a beer. Unfortunately for me, he kept his beer down in the basement in this little mini fridge, and I was already kind of scared of going down there. Not wanting to upset him by telling him no, I went for it anyway. Before I even made it to the steps, I was already getting that feeling that I shouldn't go any further, and that I should immediately turn right around, but I kept going on. As I got to the basement steps, that fear continued to grow and grow. You know that feeling you get when you can just tell that someone is staring at you? Like a fifth sense, your spine gets kind of tingly and you have this overwhelming feeling to look at in the direction. That's what I was experiencing tenfold. When I finally reached the bottom of the steps, I was almost completely paralyzed with fear. I slowly turned my head to the left towards where the open dirt area was and said hello. As soon as I said that, two red glowing orb things emerged from that dark part. I'd say they were eyes, but I can't be for sure. I didn't study them long enough before I ran up the steps as fast as I could. My dad must have heard my running and met me in the hallway, and asked what was going on. I told him about what I saw, and he immediately headed down there. I think he might have thought it was an animal or something, but after a few minutes he emerged with a beer in hand and telling me it was nothing. The second event took place a year, maybe a year and a half later. It was during the summer, and my family and I were outside, dad, mom, younger brother and myself. I had to use the bathroom and headed inside using the front door, as I had refused to use the side door since the previous event. When I went to go back outside though, I had the thought I'd try and be brave and face my fear. I headed towards the side door, sat at the top of the basement steps and waited. It didn't take long for me to get those same feelings all over again. I shouldn't be there. Something was watching me. I needed to leave immediately. I was truly tired of the fear though. I wanted to be brave and face whatever threat was down there, so I stayed. It didn't take long for me to run though, because as soon as I had made that determination, I saw a shadow paint across the wall opposite of the handrail. It was human, looked male, seemed extremely large. No real fine details. Again, not enough time, as I immediately bolted out the door. I told my dad about it. This time he seemed a bit more concerned. I didn't follow him into the house, but I did hear him racking his gun before he descended down. Just like last time though, he emerged, nothing to be found. There were other events, but those were the two primary ones. I still have nightmares about that place too. They are always so odd too. Before they involved me being inside the house already and going down to the basement to face whatever was down there. That's ended though, and now I'm always outside the house. The weather is odd, like it's not sure if it wants to be night or daytime. I have this feeling like I need to go in the house and explore it further. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. 2. Was about 5 or 6. One night my parents and I were watching TV in the living room of our ranch-style house in the suburbs in the Midwest. A stanger light coming from the hallway got our attention. In the bedroom at the end of the hall there was a 1x1 foot glowing orb of light floating about 3 to 4 feet from the floor, illuminating the dark room. The orb seemed to realize it was being observed and moved very quickly, and before we knew it the orb was outside, like it had passed through the wall or windows. It then very quickly went around the house, jumping or passing through 2 6-foot fences in a matter of seconds. We saw it do this through the windows and our dog started freaking out. My dad freaks out and grabs his revolver and a flashlight and storms outside. It had rained recently and there was mud outside, but no evidence of footprints or anything to rationally explain it. While the event is family legend now, my mom thought it was a ghost or spirit, my dad thought it was aliens, and quite frankly I have no idea. I lean towards ball lightning, but it seemed to have at least some level of intelligence and seemed to make deliberate, not random movements. 3. About time I get to talk about this again. My family lives in a super rural part of East Tennessee, and we have a family homestead that's been passed down for generations called the Turley House. Legend in the family has it that it was a Civil War hospital, which I can totally see because it's absolutely ancient and creepy. We also have a legend in the family that we're all haunted by a demon/spirit/God knows what called Wool Eyes. He's so prominent in our family's history that he's just a fact of life at this point, so it's not unusual to hear somebody say something like, "Oh look, Wool Eyes is at it again." He must be upset. One of the creepy experiences I had growing up here is the never-ending rose bush. There were 2 rose bushes on the corner of the house that weren't very big. I have some distinct memories of playing around them and getting absolutely batshit lost in the rose bushes, running in circles for hours and hours at a time. It was sort of like that scene in Spirited Away when Chihiro and Haku are running through the flower hedges. Eventually I would find my way out, but it would be hours later and my mom would be hella angry that I was gone for so long. I never really thought much of it because kid logic, but I asked my mom about it years later and she said that all the kids in the family have stories about getting lost in the same spot. Everybody always blamed it on Wool Eyes, saying he was just having fun messing around. Wish I could go back and explore the house some. It's got some crazy stories through the years. 4. Till this day, I don't know if they were a series of fucked up dreams or if it was reality. But, when I was around 6, 7, my family and I lived in a 2-story house with all the bedrooms upstairs. My mom would always send me to her room to collect nappies. My brother had just been born. And of course, my parents' room was at the very end of the hallway. I remember I had this distinct feeling that I could never recall, I just knew it when I felt it. The feeling was a warning sign that it was coming. Don't ask what the fuck it was because I had no clue. When it was coming, I would get comfortable, lie on a bed or sit down, and close my eyes. I had to close my eyes though under no circumstances were they to be open. I felt like it was forbidden to look at it. It was like a set of rules that I had to follow or else something would happen. I was too scared to question it. It would slowly come in, the feeling would grow as it got closer. And it would come from the hallway through the door. I felt like it was floating because I could never hear footsteps. It would literally just talk to me, like that's it. The subject would range from small talk to something extremely creepy, my mother's death. It would usually ask me questions like, "How was your day?" But I would never answer because, again, I was scared to death. At this point I would wait and listen until I couldn't feel its presence anymore. Only then would it be safe to open my eyes and move. It was weird because I seemed to forget the experience until the next one. After it left, I would just continue on with what I was doing like nothing had happened. The only time I'd actually acknowledge it was when the feeling would wash over me and I'd realize that I fucked up by being alone. I really don't remember much. That one nappy experience always stood out though. Everything would kind of blur together, pretty much all my memories from then are like that. I only remember my thoughts and feelings at that time. I don't even know. 5. So a friend of my family is very wealthy, and has a big house that we all affectionately call the castle. Now it's no mansion, but from my low state of living it seemed like it. Somewhere between 6, 8 rooms, a pool, 2 living rooms, giant basement filled with a flat screen and pool tables and all that. My friend and I would always crash in the basement when we stayed over. Now it was close to Halloween time, so we just finished watching a scary movie and were called upstairs for dinner. I had just finished taking a particularly nasty dump, so I closed the bathroom door and ate like usual. When we came back down to the basement, the bathroom door was open. Because it was so close to Halloween we got all spooked and ran upstairs telling my mom, "We closed the door, and it's open." So spooky, I know. But her response was, "Oh, that's just Beacom." And told us his story. Beacom is the house owner's brother's imaginary friend from when they were kids. They made sure to emphasize that it was friendly, but whenever something moves, or doors open or close they just blame Beacom and laugh it off. So my friend and I went back downstairs terrified and for the rest of the night we kept watch on the doors to see if anything was different, but sure enough if ever we both left the basement, when we came back one of the 3 downstairs doors was opened. We got into the habit of closing them all. My mom tried to scare us once with a wolf mask, which was more funny than anything. But anyway, as we were going to sleep there are 2 half windows, I say half because they are small and lead outside, while we are underground if that makes sense, and 2 couches. I lay on one and my friend lays on the other one, and from the way we're laying we could each see one of the windows. And on my window is a white face. It's very dark and hard to see, but it looks like 3 black holes on a white field that might just happen to make a face. But when I get up to look closer it moves away, almost like it's more of a reflection of light than anything else. I deliberately didn't tell my friend about it because we had had enough fear for one day. So 2 years or so later we are all talking about the scariest things that had ever happened to us, and of course Beacom gets brought into the situation. I'm listening to my friend tell the story and he ends with, "Yeah, that night scared the shit out of me. I never told you this but when we were sleeping I saw this super creepy white face looking at me through the window. But we could only see different windows. I lost my shit and was never more creeped out. It's been some time since we've been to the castle but that story will always spook me." 6. Since I was born, up to when I was around 18, I could see and feel things that no one around me would. My parents discovered I had that weird power of sensing things that they couldn't but knew I was right. They tried to force me into believing that the things I saw or sensed were just my imagination. We lived in my aunt's house for a few months when I was around 7. Our room door, which didn't have an actual door, but the space where the door would go was across from my aunt's room door, and I could see my aunt's bed, where she was sleeping with her husband, from my bed where I was sleeping with my parents. It was about 2 a.m. when I started hearing a noise that sounded just like an airplane that is going to land because it kept getting louder and closer. I woke up my parents because the noise was getting too loud, and they said they don't hear anything and got upset at me for waking them up. So they moved their heads to where their feet were and told me not to wake them up again. At that point I got really scared because I could hear this loud noise and all I can hug is my parents' feet. Suddenly a bright light lightens up my aunt's bedroom, but the light would only light their bedroom and would not light any other part of the house. I could hear the airplane hovering outside my aunt's bedroom. We lived on a second floor. Scared of the situation and to wake up my parents, I decided to close my eyes. Next thing I see when I open my eyes is this white transparent person-shaped thing that walks to my aunt and sits on the edge of her bed, waking her up but not her husband. She then sits up on the bed and they start having a conversation. I could hear them talking but I couldn't hear what they were saying clearly. After a few minutes, the thing walked to the window, which had iron bars for security, and walked through it. My aunt went back to sleep, the lights from outside turned off and the hovering airplane noise started sounding like it was going away. The next day while we all were having lunch, my aunt mentioned that Anthony, her brother / my uncle the I was named after and that died of a brain tumor when I was 1 year old, came to visit her one last time to tell her that he will not visit her anymore because he was going on a long journey.
Thanks for watching. If you got this far, leave a comment, like if you liked it, and follow for more.